Hello and welcome, I'm Chris, the Southwest Educator for Leyton House, and today I'm going to be talking to you about grey coverage. I'm going to be going through the guidelines, the rules and some tips and tricks to help you along. Now all of this information is on leytonhouseprofessional.com. Log in, put in your email and you can download technical manuals as well as lots of other useful information. Now whether you're new to hairdressing or you've been hairdressing a long time, grey coverage can be one of those very frustrating things. So hopefully this video is going to help you. And of course, like any manufacturer, we have a set of guidelines and rules for you to follow. And the majority of time these rules and guidelines work perfectly well. However, there are those clients where you need something a little bit more. And we'll be discussing that right at the end of the video. So before I jump into the main guidelines and rules for grey coverage, if you're new to hairdressing, or maybe if you're just new to Leyton House, let me give you some tips on what I found over going into hundreds of salons that have really cut down on grey coverage issues. So although these aren't rules, they have helped. Now when I started hairdressing in the early 90s, we didn't weigh a thing. It was all about, I know the consistency, I know how much I'm mixing up. And boy, were we wrong. I have never found anything more useful than weighing. I weigh absolutely everything. I weigh my colour, I weigh my bleach, and it makes such a difference. What you have to remember is that these are a chemical. They are designed to work in a specific way to a specific formulation. And there is simply no way that we can guess weight. And when the salon is very hot, what you think the consistency is like is very different to when the salon is very cold. And this can have a massive effect on the results that you get, not only on your grey coverage, but on your vibrancy and on your longevity. So if you're somebody that doesn't weigh, I would highly recommend weighing your colour and your bleach. This will give you a much better result and much more control in how much you use, saving on wastage. The second thing in going into salons I've noticed is timing. We're all very busy, and setting a timer, whether that's on your phone, your watch, or simply looking at a clock on the wall, and making sure that you are very precise on your processing time. It can be very easy to get wrapped up in a blow dry or in a client consultation and simply lose track of time. And again, that can make a very big difference to the result and the longevity of your colour. And finally, the amount of colour you actually apply. Now, we walk a very fine line between using enough colour and using too much colour that we're wasting it. And again, this is where the measuring can come in and really help you. But what I tend to see over the years is people actually not applying enough colour, especially when it comes to grey hair. Although it can be coarse and resistant, when you finally break through that, grey hair will really draw in a lot of colour. So when it comes to mixing up colour, I would suggest that for an average 6 to 8 week regrowth, I'm going to mix up 40 grams of my colour. 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio on my developer means that I'm going to add 60 grams of my developer, giving me a total of 100 grams of colour. Now that may seem like a lot, but whether it's a new client or whether they've got resistant hair, this would be my starting point. In fact, a lot of time I will add even more colour for grey or resistant hair. Now I can always reduce this on future visits should I feel the client doesn't need that much colour. But as soon as I see a difference, the colour not taking, fading, maybe going a bit translucent, I know I've reduced that colour mixture by too much. So let's get to the rules and start with the fundamentals. All of the fashion colours will cover up to 70% grey hair on their own with no need for base. And all of the base colours will cover 100% grey hair. So if you're using a fashion colour, there is no need to add any base if they have no grey hair up to 70% grey hair. It's a mixing ratio of 1 to 1.5. And the timing is 30 minutes without heat, 15 to 20 minutes with gentle heat. And we're also going to be using our 3% if all we want to do is cover grey or deposit colour. Now there seems to be this urban myth that 3% has no lift, and that is simply not true. 3% has half to 1 level of lift. So if we're going on the same base as them, so if they're a 7 and we're going to use a 7.4, a 7.036 or a 7.0, we only need to deposit the colour and 3% 10 vol is enough. Likewise, if they're up to 70% grey, 3% is enough to open the cuticle and allow that colour deposit to go in. Now once we get over 70% with our fashion colours, we're going to add 1/4 of our base to them. And this is going to help the colour adhere better to the hair. We're still going to go to a 1 to 1.5 mix, and we're still going to use our 10 vol 3%. Now if we combine this with making sure that we weigh it and time it and apply enough colour, I find that the majority of the time this rule works. However, we do have clients with thicker or more resistant hair. And this is when we're going to slightly start to change the rule. The first thing is we have double bases, ranging all the way from a double 4.0 up to a double 9.0. And these have 1.5 times more pigment in than the base shades do. And this allows greater depth of coverage. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if I feel that my client needs something a little bit extra, is replace my 1/4 of base with my 1/4 of my intensive base. I'll still stick to my 1.5 developer ratio, and I'll still use my 3%, 10 volt. I would start off by adding 1/4 of my intensive base into my target colour and working my way up depending on how resistant or how grey or difficult that client's hair was. And once again, I would stick to using my 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio and using my 10 volt and 3%. So if you've done that already and you want to move to the next step, then the next thing is to go to a 1 to 1 mixing ratio. This is going to intensify and deposit more pigment. You can also give it an extra 5 minutes on your processing time. And you can also step up to using 20 volt 6%. This is going to open up that cuticle even more and allow more colour to penetrate and saturate the hair. Now, like I've said, every client is different, and the first rules that I talked about work for most of my clients. And then I have a few clients where no specific one thing works for the same person. I mean, after all, these aren't box dyes. It's not one thing fits everybody. I may have one client where using the intensive pigment and sticking with 3% is more than enough. Whereas another client, I'll have to go to a 1 to 1 mix and use 6%. And this again comes back to the importance of weighing it and keeping thorough records, like I know you all do. Now finally, we move on to that client. Yes, we've all got it, that client. Doesn't seem to matter what you do, their hair will not cover. And they seem to be the clients as well that stick with you and follow you around, and you dread seeing them. So now we're going to talk about a few little tips that bend the mainstream rules. Once again, this doesn't mean that I am going to apply it to the other 99% of my client. It just means this client is the exception. So we're using our double pigment, we're using our 6%, and we've gone to a 1 to 1 mix, and we're weighing it, and we're applying lots of colour, and we're giving it an extra 5 minutes. And yet we still don't feel that we're getting the coverage we want. Now this is when you can do one of two things. Adding in one of the 0.021s. If you're on a base of a 7, you're going to add in 10% of your 7.021 to your mix. Now this is a violet blue colour. Now just by adding the 10%, we're not going to darken the colour, but we're going to enable those pigments to really stick and adhere to the hair nicely, giving us more depth and tone to the hair. The other thing you can do, rather than using the 021, is to actually add 10% of a shade that's 2 shades darker. So again, if I'm using a 7.0, I'm going to add 10% of 5.0. Once again, this isn't going to darken your colour. It's simply going to enable it to adhere to the hair and for you to get better depth within the hair. Now, these are things that I do very rarely, and I make sure that I have done all of the other steps before moving to this. But there certainly are those clients where it is needed. Now, like I said, these are not box ties. It is not one fits all. And our Facebook technical support page is there to help and answer questions. We also have a number of courses, whether it's for grey coverage, foundation, balayage, blonding or lightening. So why not check your local distributor for when they're available. Now, I hope this video has helped, and it has by no means answered everybody in the world's question, but I hope it's giving you a guide to go by and maybe giving you some information that you haven't currently thought about. Now, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification button for more videos and updates. And I'll see you next time.